like what is life? Like, what is there a definition for life? I don't have the answer for what life is exactly, but I know that most people, when they think of how life began, they think that we pretty much started by an act of love, hopefully, and out of that came a sperm cell and an egg cell, and then a little baby's born, and that was how we physically began. But there's actually a whole lot more to the story than life beginning there. It actually began hundreds of millions of years ago, and this creature that you see right here on the screen is a bacteria, and this is our ancestor. We began like that little strange organism right there. There's a theory called symbiogenesis that was developed by a woman at Amherst. Actually, she's the one who made it popular in this country. A Russian first introduced it. And when it was first, she did introduce it, all of the scientists in the United States just kind of thought it was ridiculous. But over time, more and more of them are adopting the theory of symbiogenesis over evolution. They're beginning to realize that this theory makes a lot of sense. So what it is, symbiogenesis means that bacteria, somewhere along the way, millions and millions of years ago, began to collect together in little communities. And then they formed a little wall around themselves. And then, over millions of more years, they developed genetic structures like DNA and RNA. And that was really where the first cells began, which eventually differentiated into other kinds of organs, other kinds of plants, other kinds of animals. And again, this is talking about millions and millions and millions of years. But it's important to know that all life began first with bacteria. And the reason that it's important to understand that is that there's a myth out there in most of the world that bacteria are bad for us and that we have to destroy them. They're the enemy, basically, and we've set up an entire medical system for decades now to kill these bacteria and get rid of them because we thought they were the cause of disease, and they're not. It's important to know that these bacteria, besides coming first, they actually rule the planet still. They still are controlling this planet, more so than we are. And so it's really wise to know more about this invisible world inside of us. Remember, we can't see them, which is a very fortunate thing, because if we could, we wouldn't really have much joy on this planet. We couldn't see colors. We would only see shapes. We wouldn't be able to see differences between ourselves. We couldn't tell if we had different color hair and skin color and everything. It would just be a world of shapes, very gray and dull. And it would, so someone, whoever created us, gave us eyes that can't see the bacteria, but at the same time, since we can't see them, we have never known they were there. But it's really wise, if you want to have peak performance, to understand them. So that's where we're going to go next. When we're developing inside of our mother's womb, we are in a sterile world. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't become infected in the womb, and people are becoming infected in the womb, especially today. I'm sure you know that, like HIV, a mother who has HIV can give that to her baby. Hepatitis can be passed to a baby. But what very few people understand is that yeast, if a mother has a yeast infection in her body, even if it's very low grade and very chronic, it will become acute while she's pregnant. And so that's because the sugar in her blood goes up so that the baby's brain develops. But what happens is the sugar feeds the yeast in her blood, and it goes from being maybe a low-grade infection, kind of a chronic infection, to a very acute infection, and she will give it to her baby. So babies today are born with cradle cap and eczema, sometimes severe gut dysbiosis, like leaky gut. There's more signs than ever that babies are coming out of the womb actually really sick. But it's true that at this point in the womb, there's not any bacteria on or in their body yet. But infections, yes. So the baby, let's go back a second. This baby, is, when it's time for him to be born, he's going to slip through the birth canal, and he's going to come out into a world that's supposed to be full of, he's supposed to slip through the birth canal, and the birth canal is supposed to have a lot of bacteria, healthy bacteria, and particularly bifidus bacteria. And then that bacteria, the baby's whole body is being covered with bacteria. He's breathing it in. It's covering his eyes. We can't see it happening, but he's instantly, basically, in a sense, attacked by bacteria. But it's not a bad thing at all. As the baby's being born, everybody's checking to see if he has all his fingers and toes, and is he healthy. No one's ever thought, okay, now he's here. The next thing we need to do is make sure that he can live safely in this world. In order to do that, he has to have a really hardy inner ecosystem. And that means a world of beneficial bacteria that lives in his intestines. And in a few minutes, I'm going to start explaining to you why it's there. But first, why do you think we even have a GI tract? Why do we have a digestive tract? Well, the digestive tract is actually an outside organ. It's just running through our body, but it's an outside organ that happens to be inside our body. And so we have it there so that we can digest and absorb food, and important substances are made there. And it also protects us from pathogens. It's the most important part of our body for protecting us from pathogens. So they provide the protection in our gut that we need, and the gut lining actually secretes mucus that helps protect us from these pathogens. And with a healthy gut barrier, we live much longer, and we're much stronger, and we're more intelligent, and we can, and if bad bacteria comes and infects us, we will survive. A lot of times bad bacteria is infecting us, yeast, fungus, other things are infecting us, and we don't even know because the good bacteria are there protecting us. If you don't have it there, you're going to get things like irritable bowel disease, diarrhea, Crohn's, colitis, which are really common today. We can't see the bacteria, as I mentioned before, but we are way, way more bacteria than we are humans. That's what I mean when I say they rule. And there's actually 10 to 20 more times more bacteria on or inside us than there are cells in the entire human body. There are somewhere between 500 to 1,000 strains alone, and they're still identifying new ones all the time, just in the gut itself. As many as 1,000 possible strains could be living in your gut right now. And altogether, they could weigh as much as 3 or 4 pounds. And that means that 50% of the feces is actually bacteria, or should be. And the bacteria inside of you are always in a state of flux. They're constantly changing in all kinds of ways inside of us. Just like the world outside of us changes constantly, this world inside of us does as well. And some people, scientists, have actually started to call this the undiscovered organ. It's literally an entire organ on our body that we can't see that's the undiscovered organ. Now, again, as I said, the hardy inner ecosystem, which is a civilization of beneficial microflora that happen to start organizing themselves together. They work really hard to help each other grow, and so they have what's called a symbiotic relationship. It takes a long time for that hardy inner ecosystem to be established. So we never want to wipe it out with something like sugar, or stress wipes it out, an antibiotic wipes it out. Many, many things easily destroy this inner ecosystem. So many people are walking around without one. One day only on an antibiotic will wipe out all the bacteria in your gut. And that's usually what happens when a baby's born, is that if they're lucky and they start getting this bacteria in their gut, and the bacteria starts to grow and flourish, around 6 weeks old, the baby, particularly if it's the baby's breastfed, will get a little red rash on his face. And that rash is an indication that the gut has become strong enough now and is signaling the lungs, because in Chinese medicine, the large intestine and the lungs are a yin-yang pair. So now the gut is strong enough to empower the lungs to begin to discharge and cleanse as well. And so you'll get a little rash on your cheeks if you're a baby, right about exactly at 6 weeks. And then the immune system starts going out for its first practice run, and it'll start to fight against any negative bacteria that's in the immune system, and so usually the baby will get sick, like with a runny nose, and they can't breathe very well, and the mother gets really scared, and she marches the baby off to carries the baby off to the pediatrician, who gives the baby his first antibiotic and wipes out his entire immune system. And then, from then on, we kind of wonder why we get sick. Nobody ever says, let's put that inner ecosystem back in place because we just wiped it out. And actually, that baby should have been allowed to actually have his immune system would have been stronger if he'd been allowed to fight that infection or fight those toxins in his body, basically. It was a form of cleansing, really, that's happening. So the hearty inner ecosystem is essential for peak performance. You don't have energy or chi, daily chi, without this. Like we're given prenatal jing from our parents. That's what we're born with, our constitutional energy that we're born with. But our daily chi that we have to live our day, each day off of, that energy, is created in the gut by the microflora. So you've got to have them there. And the foods that we eat are broken down and assimilated so that we have energy, and the microflora play a key role in that happening. And what's very interesting, that every single one of us has our own unique, we're all unique, we have unique fingerprints, and we look different, but we also have a completely different signature of bacteria in our gut. Every single person in this room has a completely different inner ecosystem than anyone else. Now, you'll find your inner ecosystems, or these bacteria lining your mucosal lining of your intestines. They're on the mucosal lining of the birth canal in women. They're always on your skin, your eyes, your mouth, your nasal passageways, and in the lining of your lungs. Everybody knows this word probiotic today. And it means, pro means for, biotic means life, and so you put them together and it means for life. And another way it's commonly used, the word probiotic, is that it also describes a microbe, a little tiny organism that protects and benefits its host and prevents disease. So I just want you to know some of the typical terms that are batted around by microbiologists today. Most people think that when they hear the word probiotic, that a lot of people say, oh, it's a supplement that you go into the health food store and buy in a bottle. And that's their limited understanding. Or they hear the word probiotic and they think, oh, I heard about that on TV, it's Activa or Dannon, whatever. And that's that's what they know it's good for their gut because the TV told them that. And so they're missing out on a really important bit of information that will make a huge difference in their life. There are a significant number of organisms in a little tiny probiotic or in yogurt, maybe. There could be none in there, actually. But that's not where the power is. The power is not on the probiotics that you get in those capsules. They're really in the bacteria that's on your skin and inside your body.